In this video, I'm going to show you some really cool things that you can do with Flippity Manipulatives when you use an image as your background. So if you've used Flippity Manipulatives before, you know that if we go to the demo and we go into settings, there are all of these backgrounds that are already in there for us to choose from. And those are great for things where we're just, moving words around. But sometimes you might want to have a specific background to tie into your activity. So let me show you two that I have created like this. This was an activity that I created as an introduction to our vocab. This very grainy picture came from the textbook that we formerly used, and this was actually a textbook activity where the word was in each of these white boxes. I scanned that image, I put a white box over the words and put numbers in there instead because I used to have this as a paper activity, but then I turned it into a digital one where students now just move the words around on top of the boxes. Now, as you can see, these words are a little bit too big to make that work. So when I share this with students, the first thing that I tell them to do is they're going to make that text as small as they can while still being able to read it. And then their job is to move the words around and try to match them up with where they think they go. And then as a class, we can go through all of these things together. So my words on here are just the same little text boxes, but I have an image as the background that students need to reference the words. Another way that we've done this is we were using this painting, Les Valeurs Personnelles by René Magritte, and this was an introduction to the vocab that the students would need to use. Once again, the words are a little bit big for what we need to do, so I'm going to tell them make the words a little bit smaller. They have better vision than I do anyway, and then they have to use what they know to try to figure out what goes where, because some of these are terms that the students do know and some of these are terms that they don't, so there's a little bit of kind of process of elimination that goes into this. So this painting is the background and then the words go along with it. So how do you do this? Well, it's actually really simple to do because all you're going to do is in Flippity, you're just going to create your own background. So I'm going to go back to our main Flippity page and I'm going to go to template because I'm going to create a new Flippity. So I'm going to make a copy. And what I want to do for this is we're going to do an activity that practices body parts. So my idea is I have this lovely picture of the Mona Lisa, and I'm going to make some word cards so that students can label like the eye, the nose, the mouth, the chin, the hair, etc. And this is going to be our background. So I'm going to start by putting in my terms. All right, so I put in my terms. Here are the body parts that my students should be able to identify on my painting of Mona Lisa. I'm not going to put anything in for color because I think it's going to work out best if the word cards stay white because our picture in the background is going to be rather dark. I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to call this Mona Lisa Manipulatives. And I always rename it down here as well because I like those to match. Okay, so I've got my terms in. Now I'm going to go to backgrounds. So these are all of the backgrounds that Flippity provides. I do not want to use any of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything from that. I'm going to put in my own background. So I'm just going to call it Mona Lisa, and I need a URL. Now, here's where it's really important. Here's the picture that I found. I cannot copy this and use that as the URL because that is just the search string that brings me to this entire page. I cannot copy this link address either. What I need to do is I need to open the image itself in a new tab so that I have just this picture. And then I'm going to copy this address from up above, and I'm going to paste that in for my URL. You should make sure that your website ends with like a JPEG or PNG or some other ending like that. It will not, other file types will not necessarily work. So try to stick with JPEG or PNG. Now, here's the catch. I know that there's going to be a problem here. I want you to see what the problem is, and then I'm going to show you how to fix the problem. So I've got my terms. I have my background image. Options, display random, font, sure. We're going to leave it as that font. We know that before we get the link, what do we have to do? We need to publish to the web. So I'm going to publish this, click OK. This isn't the link that I want. I'm going to close that. I'm going to get the link from here, and you're going to see what our problem is. Oh no, the Mona Lisa does not look great. Here's the problem. The picture that we used was a very vertical shot. The screen is a very horizontal shot, and what Flippity will do with a picture, because it can't decide which parts you want to use necessarily, is Flippity is just going to stretch that thing. So the whole image has been stretched horizontally. Now, could this still work? Yeah, you could make it work, okay? And you could even like resize your window so that it's more vertical. You could make it work, okay? I can still identify features, but this probably isn't what you want students seeing because it doesn't necessarily look great. So there is a different option for what we can do. We're going to take this image and we're going to make it into our own background image instead. And so one of the things you want to do for this is you want to consider what the dimensions are of the screen that students will be using for this, assuming that this is for your students' use on their own devices. So you want a measurement of like what this background is, and you can either like actually hand measure that with a ruler, or what I did is I just took a screenshot of this area and then pasted it into Google Drawings, and that told me what my measurement needed to be. So on my students' computers, on their Chromebooks, their background is approximately 10 by 4¼ It is strongly horizontal. Okay, so that is the size of the Flippity background on their devices. So what I did for myself is I made a Google drawing, and I just did the page setup, custom, 10 by 4¼ inches. Okay, so normally it'll be set to standard or one of the widescreen options, but you can make it to any dimensions you want. So that's my background. Now this is my blank one, so I'm actually going to make a copy of this because I'm going to add our picture. So this is going to be our Mona Lisa Flippity background. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this web address from my Mona Lisa picture, and I'm going to go to Insert, Image, by URL. I have the specific URL I want to use, so I can click Insert, and there's my Mona Lisa. So if I want this Mona Lisa, notice that this is how it's going to show up on student devices. It's going to have a whole bunch of black space to the left and to the right. If I didn't want it to be black, it could be a different color. So for example, in this activity, I made the background blue so it kind of matched with the sky. You can do whatever works for you, but I did just put like a giant black rectangle that covers the entire page, and that's essentially my background. Now, I can't insert a Google drawing into this. This was my link for the actual image. That clearly didn't work, so we're going to delete that. I can't put just the link for the Google drawing. I'm actually going to do the same thing for this as I do for Flippity itself. I need to publish this to the web. So this is the background that I want to use, but I'm going to publish it first. I'm going to leave this as medium because Flippity says that images that are larger are going to take longer to load. So I'm going to leave this as medium. That's going to be good enough for me. It doesn't have to be super awesome. I'm going to publish it, and now it gives me this link. So I'm going to copy that link. I'm going to put that in as my URL. And now remember, this Flippity is already published. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to update anything. If I go back to my get the link and I click on this again, or even if I just go to this and I refresh this page, it will automatically update with my new background. Now here's my background with my Mona Lisa, and I'm going to make my words a little bit smaller. So then we can go, okay, well, we can't really see it, but there's an ear there, and there's a nose there, and there's some lips there. And maybe my words are still too big, so I'm going to make them even smaller. But when I do that, I just have to reorganize them a little bit. Okay, so now I have that background. And you might be looking at this going, wow, that's a lot of dead space on there. Yeah, you're right, it is. I think maybe I should add something else. Let's go back to my Mona Lisa background, and maybe rather than having just Mona Lisa, she can share the spotlight with, let's say, I don't know, Bernie. Let's put Bernie in there because then we can use some other body parts as well. So I found this lovely image of Bernie. Now this address doesn't end with the JPEG or PDF, so I'm going to use this part of the web address. Actually, I'm going to go copy image address from there, and I'm going to go into my Google Drawing, insert image by URL. There's my image. I've got a lovely Bernie. We probably don't need all these walls on the sides, so I'm going to crop that down a bit. Let's put Bernie over here, and we're going to move Mona over this way a little bit. I'm going to get them so that they're actually centered. There we go. Okay, now I've got my lovely images. Remember, I had already published this to the web. I don't have to republish this. When I go back to my Flippity and I reload this page, my background updated as well because both of them were published to the web. So when anything is published and you change it, you don't have to republish it or unpublish and republish. The next time you load it or click that link, it will automatically update for you. So now I've got these body parts, but I've got some other things that I could add here. So I can even go back to this and I can add like le pied for the foot, le genou for the knee, la jambe for the leg. I can add some more body parts, and again, the next time a student opens this, it's going to add those body parts as well. The ones that I just added are showing up on here. So once it's published, all you have to do is reload or click the link and it's automatically going to change. You don't have to do anything else. So the key is, if you want to use your own background image, you can either put the link for the image right here where it says URL, but keep in mind it's going to stretch it to fit the space available. Or what you do is you just go into Google Drawings, create a Google Drawing that is the dimension of the background on your student devices, add the pictures you want to add, and you're going to do the same thing as you would do with a Flippity. You go to File, Publish to Web. You're going to copy that address of the published image, and that's the one that you put in as your URL. So have fun making Flippities with awesome backgrounds to use.